One of the most exciting moments of this build is finally here. I call it the wedding. The welding together of the front and aft sections of the boat. Up until now, the boat has been built in two separate halves. That made handling much easier, and it allowed me to keep working efficiently. While one section was clamped up and curing with wood glue, I could continue making progress on the other one. But today, those two halves become one. Bringing them together sounds simple, but achieving a perfectly symmetrical alignment is far more challenging than I expected. Precision is everything, and even the smallest deviation will show. The aft part of the saloon and the cockpit will also be given some love to in this episode. A big thanks to my girlfriend for helping me mount the upper level cockpit deck. This is where the saloon door will eventually be installed, so getting the alignment right here is crucial. The upper deck will be tied into rib number 8 to add reinforced structural strength. 4mm ribs may seem a bit flimsy on their own, but once all the plates are bonded in place, the structure becomes surprisingly solid. There are still a few elements missing before you can clearly recognize the cockpit of a Viking 50C, but steady progress is definitely being made. Talking about strength, I added small beams between the ribs to provide additional rigidity and support. In the end, every rib will be connected longitudinally in one way or another to create a fully integrated structure. The connections between the ribs forming the saloon are especially critical. Later on, the removable helm will rest and be mounted there, so this section needs to be extremely solid, otherwise it will definitely come loose. With the front section now nearly complete, it's time to move back to the cockpit. Then I cut several wooden spacer blocks to the exact dimensions specified in the construction drawings, matching the precise distance between the ribs. These blocks serve multiple structural purposes. First, they create a solid mounting base for the removable helm or pallet house, which will later sit on top of the saloon. At the same time, they significantly increase the boat's longitudinal rigidity by tying the rib structure together along the length of the hull. I still have some wood left over from my RC trawler build, which I'll use to shape the very aft end of the boat. The stern of a Viking is characteristically rounded, without a swim platform, and features a tuna door on the starboard side, a detail I'll definitely incorporate. The two massive exhaust outlets are another distinctive feature, and I'm really looking forward to building those. First though, this 1.5mm wood will form the elegant curve of the stern. Secured with wood glue and temporary screws, it should later appear completely seamless. With the final ribs now installed in the forward section, the bow area is structurally complete. One feature that really stands out on a sport fishing yacht is the woodwork in the cockpit, especially the large wooden finishing of the top gunnels in the aft cockpit. I want to build this to scale and preserve the natural wood color when applying the gel coat. But that's when I discovered a problem with the build. So now that I've almost completed the aft section of my boat, I've noticed a tiny bit of a problem. And well, it's not so tiny actually. A boat usually, the backside of a planning boat, usually actually slopes up towards the end, towards the outer side of the hull. So it's not a big problem. I can still try to cut it. It's too much material, not too little. But still, what I have to do, I have to kind of do an upslope here to be true and be scale to the actual real boat, the Viking 50C. So that's what we're going to do today. Work smart or work twice. A method I very much like. For me, in order to get a straight line here, I use this thing right here. Before doing anything else, it was time to take a proper measurement for once. Port side, I guess. Since there are no official stern photos of the Viking 50C, I had to estimate the exact angle by eye. That angle at the very stern is known as the Deadrise. In simple terms, more Deadrise improves rough water performance, but it also increases draft and reduces stability. This looks a bit much. I don't know if the thrust tubes are too big. Again, just looking at some photos. I've now drawn 3 different versions of the sizes of the thrust tube, and one of those it will be, probably the middle one. I'm kind of happy with that. So just a moment of truth, let's see. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. It's much better than before. There's some love to be doing. With the last strip at the bow installed, it unfortunately became obvious that some of my earlier measurements and jigsaw cuts were not exactly my finest work. What you probably see here is that this is not completely one line of flow here. I'm going to be mounting the upper deck here once the ribs are all done, which they actually are at this time. And the upper deck has to be flush with all the ribs, obviously, for stability reasons. So there you see that there are some spots where it goes like this, waves up here, just from my sloppy cutting with the jigsaw. And actually the deep run plus the epoxy fiberglass will be around 3 to 4 millimeters in thickness. But actually to be completely scale, I would now have to remove 3 millimeters of this in order to be the height that I want for the model. But I do have some leeway with the height of the deck by changing the height of the ribs. And what I wanted to say with that, I will flush and plan down some of those to make them more even in regards to height. So this is the front part of the windscreen, the support bracket for the deep run. I need for all the deep run needs supports. I could probably do the boat without any of those ribs, but of course I need something to support the shape of what the deep run will later be. So this window front windscreen frame, that fun fact, isn't actually a real windscreen in the real Vikings. Always thought there would be a second home to be comfortable down below, but actually these boats are usually driven down in Florida, and it's always warm, so rarely you see that going out in sub 60 degrees or something Fahrenheit. So probably this is why they do not have a lower helm station, and this is why this is actually a fake windscreen in the boat as it is in the real one. In the real one, the side windows are actually real. The front windows are fake, but you do not see any difference from the front screen to the side screens. So this is why I also decided to make the whole thing fake, because it is very difficult to make one thing fake, the other thing real glass, without with making it seamless. So I'm just going to color it. So yeah, this goes up here. This will be the supporting bracket for my windscreen, and there is that. So yeah, let's see. This is quite flimsy. I have to make some supports for that as well. Things like the support bracket I'm building right now are genuine afterthoughts. Many ideas developed throughout the course of filming, and in reality very little was fully resolved during the original design and drafting phase. At the end of the day, this boat truly is a prototype. So yeah, 4mm plywood ribs. I think they're definitely too flimsy. With the next project I will definitely do 8mm plywood ribs, again like I did with my trawler that I built last time. Now I have these struts again that I will use, mount in between the ribs, the exact distance, and also make it a little bit more sturdy. So this is definitely a step I would have not done with 8mm plywood, but it is what it is. I gotta work with it now. Yeah, once the deep run is all over, I think it's gonna be pretty sturdy. So I am again taking advantage of the fact that I still did not connect the two parts of the hull, which makes it so much easier to handle. So I hope I don't regret this, but I'm gonna be doing the whole connector plate, yeah, to connect the two parts of my ship. And I call this wedding. So I got two connector plates right here. These go slot in here. The other part slots then right up to it. This is where the battery will go, by the way. Before the wedding, I will actually sand this down to have a little bit of a nicer surface to work on later. I do this outside just to have less of the dust kicking up my nose. And there it is, the first time I'm seeing the entire hull assembled in broad daylight. As Remy RC, who builds extra large RC aircraft, once said, you rarely take enough time to pause the build and simply look at what you've created. It's easy to finish a project and leave it sitting on a shelf somewhere. These moments, stepping back and appreciating the work, are something that I consciously make time for. Back in the workshop, the next step was to verify alignment. With both major sections connected, I needed to confirm that the hull sits straight and that all distances correspond to the design. For that, I referenced the CAD drawings Google SketchUp to confirm the intended measurements. So I have a bit of an issue with the off part of the keel. As I said, the boat is made in two parts, front part, aft part, each about 1 meter long in length. The front part is totally fine, but the aft part of the boat is crooked. I don't know how it happened. The front part is totally fine, the aft part is crooked. It's about 1 centimeter off at the very aft of the boat, keeping in mind the very front is perfectly level. What I do now is I will cut out little pieces of wood about 20 centimeters long, sturdy wood, and glue that in between the ribs of the boat. I hope that will solve the issue. As of now, I cannot connect the two keels, the aft part and the front part now, because make the aft part perfect first. Unfortunately, the aft part of the boat is crooked. And what I tried to do, I had little pieces of wood like this cut out, and I actually planned on mounting them this way in between the ribs, so that later this would straighten out the whole thing. But I kind of tested this with some clamps, if this would actually do any difference. It doesn't do too much of a difference. So what I'm actually planning to do now is, I have a planner here, this one, a professional planner. I'm gonna try to plan this with 1 millimeter on one side, so the whole thing, when later mounted to the forward part, is then a little bit to the left. This solves many issues. First and foremost is that the distances will be correct, and also the boat will be a little bit less crooked. How crooked is the boat actually? Well, if you just look at it, it's about 1 centimeter of crookedness. In goes the forward part, and then this is the connector plates, and now I have to figure out kind of what I have to do with the back part in order to make it completely straight from the front, from the bow to the very aft to the stern. So my battery plate right here. Another attempt, another failure. Time to move to Google SketchUp. So what I now do, I measure the distance in the plan between those two parts, in between where the batteries will later sit. So yeah, this is the battery, the electrical plate, and this is the distance that I need. 26.5. Now this is without any wood. The wood thickness is 4 millimeters, so on each side, so 2 millimeters because we're halving it. So again, 26.4. Now comes down to 26.1. Now cut out some blocks with this wood, 26.1. Now we'll take this to get the space right, and then I will just nail it down, and it has to stay just true to whatever the distance is, 26.1. It takes a big man to admit to his mistakes, and I'm that big man. Getting it all straightened out, that's the plan here. Okay, very exciting time. The first time wedded together forever, never to be for eternity, for as long as the boat will float. The timber brace I installed marks the exact dimension specified in the CAD plans. It forces the hull into the correct geometry and ideally keeps it there. It's not like rocket science, but still, wow, look at this. Almost fits snugly. My plan really does work. Same size piece. Let's go and screw that and glue that on. Satisfied with the alignments, I moved on to fitting out the interior structure. The boat will carry 2 AGM batteries, each 12 volt and 40 amp hours, connected in series to provide 24 volts. Together they weigh approximately 15 kilograms. The same battery type is used in my large RC trawler, although that vessel only requires one. To the front of the battery plate towards the bow there will be the electrical panel, the main electrical panel, and there only will be one electrical panel, not like 2 or 3 like in the first design of my RC trawler. So I have a little tube right there, like you see here, and that tube will house the cables below the battery plate. And the area below the battery plate will never be treated with epoxy or anything to make the wood watertight, because there will not be any water coming into that compartment below the battery. So I will completely seal it up so that I don't have to fiddle around with anything water related. I will have cables running through below the battery in order to have a clean setup with all the cables between ESC and all of that. And that's something I think about now, but I would not have thought about that with the first trawler design that I did like a year ago. So you definitely learn some stuff along the way, which is pretty cool. To keep the center of gravity as low as possible, I mounted the battery trays directly to the keel at the lowest point in the hull. The void space beneath the battery plate will be sealed watertight. Small drainage openings allow any water from the battery compartment to flow aft into the bilge. Another idea that surfaced well after the design phase was to integrate a carrying handle at the boat's longitudinal center, right where the batteries sit. By fastening the mounts not only to the keel, but also to the ribs, the structure should gain sufficient rigidity to lift and transport the hull later on. As for the final weight, it's still up for debate. My estimate is roughly 15 kilograms without the batteries or helm, but that's only an estimate. I could easily be off. I then finished the battery plate with filler to create a smooth, seamless and fully watertight surface. Last stop, the aft section of the saloon. Thinking about it, maybe that part of the saloon should have probably been a actual rib. Would have made it a lot easier and a lot less of work. But that's how it is now. So this is the back plate. Do not have a different kind of window in the front and a normal kind of window in the back. I think I will not cut out windows here, but I might change my opinion. I don't know, I'm very fluid on that. Opinion fluid. So let me give you a little tour of what I have been building the last few days. So
this is pretty cool. We have a tube right there that will actually have the cable stored in, and there are tubes all over the boat actually. So this is the only space where there is no tube, but there is one tube coming from below, from the electronics bay, that is down below. This is tube that will connect under the battery bay, connect the forward part of the boat where the electronics will sit with the aft part where the engines will be. So this is where the engines will be, and this is where the Stevens tube will run through, and then behind the back there's also a tube running on here, and this is where the rudder and underwater lighting and all that stuff will be with those thrust tubes. So if we go forward, we have another tube, and you can probably guess what's in the front of a Viking. Do not have an anchor in the front like you might think. So what's actually in here is a tube for the bow thruster that will go in here. I have to make the cutout for that. But other than that, I do have a handle now, which makes transporting the boat very easy. I'm very proud of that. Pretty good handle. It has some play, but no problem at all. And actually I can even, with everything built in, then grab it and transport it in that way. That's pretty cool. And this is where the batteries will go, battery 1, battery 2. Of course 12 volt each to get a 24 volts. And the back of the saloon is now completed. I will not do any cutouts for the doors or for anything. I will all do 3D printed / colored to make the impression of a window. This is where the salon ends. Some fine tuning definitely has to be done, but other than that, I think it already looks like a Viking, and I'm pretty stoked to have that looking like that already. So it looks pretty slick. So the length of my videos is always based on how much I can fit on my SD card. I got a 128 gig SD card in there, and it says 2 minutes of remaining time of recording time. So this is where I'll have to end it again with the video, but I think we have done a lot of work. We've almost completed the aft part of the structure of the cockpit area. We have done so much in regards to the interiors of the boat, making it very sturdy. We have wedded them together, what I call wedding. You know, wedding is like joining two parts, with the aft part of the boat and the forward part of the boat, which is quite exciting. So yeah, this is where I'll leave it. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one.
In the next episode, we'll begin working on the outer hull of the boat. I'm really excited to finally get started on that part. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel to follow the build, give it a thumbs up and drop a comment below. I read every single one of them, and I'm always happy to answer your questions. It really helps the channel to grow and allows more people to discover the project. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.